And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the semifinals, the lower semifinals of the Sparkling Tuna Cup number 65. And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Alcyone, we have our Canadian Protoss player, the red Protoss representing Basilisk. It is Trigger. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have the blue Terran player for the Platinum Heroes. It is Nicoract. Let us go. If you're in the chat, predictions are now open. Place your bets on who you think will be our next finalist. Shin is patiently waiting in the grand finals for either one of these two players. Will it be Trigger or Nicoract? Terran or Protoss? Who will it be? All things balanced as they should be. We have one player of each race left in the tournament, but Shin was the #1 seed. And I'm curious who will face off against him. And I'm curious if we're going to be having a rematch as well. For those that maybe weren't here last week, Trigger and Shin faced off in the Ursasaurus Cup. Wait, was it the Ursasaurus Cup or was it the other one? No, it was the Tenacious Turtle Tussle. That's it. Where Trigger did actually defeat Shin in a best of 3 and did deny him that grand finals as well. So Trigger, he was able to defeat him last week, but can he even face him this time? Can he even face him this week? As Nicoract is standing between him and those finals. Again, Nicoract has been improving so much over time, so much over the past, I want to say 9 months. Basically, this year, 2024, it feels like this has been the year of Nicoract. I don't know what it was, but Nicoract, he was able to kind of break through that barrier that was kind of denying him the upper echelon of European Terran, and Nicoract, he's just been getting better and better results this year. It's been a very impressive kind of rate of improvement from Nicoract. It's great to finally see him kind of break out of that. And I mean, there's still, I would say, there's still like kind of a distinguished hierarchy of Terran in Europe, like, you know, your Spirits, your Clems, your Hero Marines. But just under them, I think that is where I would place Nicoract, actually. I think I would place him above Battlebee, for example, and above some of these other European Terran players. I think I would place him as #4 Terran in Europe, unless I'm forgetting someone, but yeah, Nicoract has been improving a lot. Been looking really good. We'll see if he can go further. From here, Nicoract poking in. Do have our tech of choice. Going to be a Twilight Council for Trigger. So Gate, Cyber, expand into Twilight Council. Working towards Blink. Now we'll see what kind of Blink. 2-gate Blink, 3-gate or 4-gate ways. We'll keep an eye on Trigger. See how aggressive or how greedy he intends on being. Meanwhile, Nicoract, it does feel like his best matchup has been TVP of late. I don't want to gloss over it, but Nicoract, to make it this far in the tournament, he actually brought down Geralt. Geralt is similar to Nicoract, I would say one of the best Protoss players in Europe. I'll say top 5, top 4. Geralt is definitely up there. So for Nicoract to bring Geralt down, that's already a big win for the Terran. And he's not done. Wants to keep going. Behind this, opening up Reactor Reaper Hellion. Behind this, going to Cyclone production. Rest of his Raxes. Quite an aggressive start. He wants workers. He wants to get into that mineral line. Got some Stalkers in position. Shield Battery as well. Nicoract trying to break his way through. Trying to avoid those Stalkers. But the Warlof! The SimCity! Oh my god, the positioning from Trigger! It does body block in time, does zone Nicoract away, and Trigger will defend. Whew. Again, Reaper Hellion annihilates workers and annihilates mineral lines so fast, and Trigger doesn't lose a single unit. Not a single probe does fall. Very impressive defense. Behind this, getting to a 3rd. Trigger is expanding. And Nicoract looking for another way in. Is denied it. Nicoract pulling back. Behind this, Stim is on the way. Tank production has begun, getting into a 3-1. Now, what I will say is that this is a big delay on the starport. Because of that, this could be a 2-base all-in. If Nicoract does not take a starport anytime soon, if he does not throw one down anytime soon, then Nicoract may pull the boys. So this could be the beginning of an all-in. Trigger back at home, still building up, getting his 3rd. Again, was an economic opener, 2-gate Blink into a 3rd, into delayed gateways. Now Trigger is thankfully going for a safety Immortal. We'll have that to work with, but is it going to be enough? Okay, we're waiting for Nicoract to pull the trigger. Ah, see what we did there? Okay, goddamn. Waiting for him to commit and move out. That's what I should be saying. Upgrades are still on the way. Trigger poking in. Takes the tank shot to the face. Still no starport. I'm feeling the all-in. I can feel it. He wants to pull the boys, baby. He wants it. Trigger lying in wait. The Bay is on the way for Colossus. The initial immortal has arrived. In an interesting an interesting location. He's gonna pull back. And here we go. Nicoract, he is breaking free. Stim is now done. And behind this, taking gases. Not going for the all-in. Still committed though. Still a massive army. That's 3 tanks and a lot of Marines. You can see Trigger trying to slow this army down. Picks off some Marines, some of the bio. Behind the starport finally on the way. eBay as well for +1. So Nicoract is working on the next step. Hoping to find some damage. Trading with the Stalkers. Stimming in. And once again, another stim. A lot of Stalkers going down. And Trigger, he almost has nothing left. He gets caught out. Overcharge gets popped, but it doesn't matter. It's not enough. It's not good enough here as the Immortals are falling one after the other. And Trigger, he's being overwhelmed. He cannot keep up. If we had the boys with this, just saying, if we pull the SCVs. I mean, regardless, Nicoract, he has too much to work with. He takes out every single unit. The Stalkers, the Immortals, the Shield Battery, even the Overcharge. It's 9 probes going down. Trigger might be able to hold on with these reinforcements. Gets on top of the tanks. But it's still not barely enough. Yeah, the final tank will still live. And the third base has to be evacuated. Nicoract a little bit too much. Trigger with another Warping of Zealots. Can defend. Oh, the Colossus. Colossus goes down. But alas, it looks like the final tank will fall and Trigger barely holds. Just barely. It wasn't necessarily for free. Did cost him a lot of workers. That was how many workers going down. That was 11 probes falling. 2 Immortals, a Colossus as well. Again, that was a rough hold for Trigger, but he does survive. Behind this, remember, Nicoract did throw down a 3rd CC. Is expanding, is taking as well. 2nd starport's on the way. I do think that if Nicoract had pulled the boys, it would have been enough to have broken the 3rd completely, but alas, Nicoract is building up towards a longer game state. And I still want to favor... Do I want to favor Nicoract here? I mean, still working on +1. Has to rebuild his bio army. No more tanks behind this. No more splash damage. Trigger did hold. And he's taking a 4th. He's bouncing back. I wouldn't say he's quite there yet, but he's getting there. As Nicoract still has an even worker count with the Protoss, plus mules. And Trigger does need that 4th. Moving up with the Colossus. Herkian is going to be able to knife some of these bunkers. Has to be careful to overextend. As now reinforcements have arrived, getting into the main army. Marines are going down Marauders as well. The Colossus does get caught up. And having a hard time keeping up with the main army. The Colossus, no! Ooh, almost overextending. But it looks like Trigger may just barely have enough. Another Warping of Zealots coming in. Vikings have arrived, limited anti-air. Trigger being forced back against still a very scrappy game state here. Trigger so close to breaking Nicoract. But the Vikings have arrived. Liberator as well. Nicoract, he has freedom. And he holds. Nicoract does hold. I say that, here comes some more Stalkers. The War Prism barely survived. Trigger, he knows how close he is to breaking Nicoract. He's so close. Prism goes down. No more reinforcements. Colossus falls as well. Again, Nicoract just kiting back into those freedom zones. Into the Liberators. And Trigger, he can no longer end the game. I'm going to say that he's still rallying across the map. Trigger, he still wants to end it. He wants it back. Engaging with the Colossus. Another Colossus goes down. Again, the Vikings are getting so much value. They get the Colossus once again. Nicoract landing the Vikings, pulling some boys. Catching out the Immortal and the Archon. And again, it isn't just Nicoract defending and holding, he's resetting the robo counts every time. Whether it's Immortals, Colossus, the War Prism. Just some very valuable pickups here from Nicoract. Behind this Trigger on a 4-base economy. He's got his 4th up and running. But again, Trigger has been bleeding out a little bit too much. And I don't blame him, he's been so close to breaking Nicoract, but he hasn't, is the problem. Zealot's coming in for a flank. Nicoract once again pulling back to the Liberators. And Nicoract even catching out those Zealots. And finally, Trigger, he has to pull back home, at least with the Colossus. Hopefully both. As Nicoract, he's weathered the storm. Building up more Vikings. 4th CC is now on the way. And we're still in a very kind of uneasy position here for I feel like both players. Maybe Nicoract is feeling more comfortable, especially now that he's got Ghost. Getting to Lib Ghost. You could definitely argue maybe over making Vikings. Getting up to 10 Vikings. I mean, there's 3 Colossus. It's okay, it's okay. Yeah. Against 3 Colossus is going to be worth it. Trigger has yet to invest into Disruptors. Just Colossus into Immortal instead. Personally, I wasn't sure what the Colossus count was looking like, especially after losing so many, but back up to a healthy count. Nicoract scanning, looking for the expansion. Has yet to confirm the 4th. I mean, now has. Trigger not taking a 5th base. And we spoke about the Disruptors earlier. They're now on the way. The Disruptors, they're coming. Likewise, Nicoract fortifying himself. Towers being thrown down. Turrets as well. 4 CC being landed. Ghost count getting up and running. Meanwhile, Trigger securing himself, throwing down a wall of cannons and shield batteries. Trigger just walling up. And we're entering a longer game state. Zelrambe doesn't really get much. Main army's posturing. 3 SCVs go down. Trigger just doubling down on Disruptors. Right now we're on how many Liberators? Just 2. Okay, only 2 Libs for the time being. Getting to +1 ship weapons, +1 air attack. In this kind of game state, I'm waiting for a Trigger to throw down something like, for example, either a 3rd Robo or a Fleet Beacon and a Stargate, and start thinking about maybe a Skytoss transition, as both players are maxed out. But now though, the armies are still maneuvering against each other. Trigger does find the double drop. Nice position with the Observer. Catches the Medivacs at the same time. Zelrambe will keep the main army distracted. Nicoract going for the expansion. Oh, can he get it? That's a kill. That's a kill, not a cancel. Not bad. I mean, considering the fact that Trigger, he spotted the drop, still gets a kill. Main army's rotating. Trigger does have a recall. And he may have to use it. Or do we commit to a base trade? What's the plan? The army has arrived. 5th base is going to be evacuated, and Trigger, he does not turn around. We're trading a base for a base. Nexus will fall, and so should the planetary. And do we keep going? That's the big question here. Do we just keep on pushing? Nicoract, he got the 5th, going for the 4th. There is a DT. There are EMPs available. Scan as well. The Dark Templar gets free damage. Army pushing in. Good Novas. Novas do connect, and Nicoract, he's racing back home. He is racing back. And do we have a recall? Mike is coming in. Nova's going to be able to zone. Novas do zone away. And Trigger, he's about to be surrounded. We had to recall. Oh, it's not available anymore. It's too late. Nicoract, he collapses in. Massive Novas go off. Oh my god. The Novas are insane. And we do go for the recall, saving at least 3 disruptors. But Trigger did get caught out. Does lose the main army. Trigger was able to just collapse on the economy though. The 4th base went down. Nicoract down to 38 SCVs. Barely an economy. Now last, Nicoract coming out worse for wear in this base trade. Back across the map, Trigger, he's on 78 probes. He's on 5 Nexus. Getting a 6th base. Trigger has double the economy, double the base count of Nicoract. Nicoract, he's all in. I mean, Nicoract collapsing on the army was maybe like the best case scenario, but still. There's still just so many reinforcements, so many warp ins. Oh, the Novas! The Novas connect, there's just too many balls. GG gets called, and Trigger will take game number 1. Whew. GG. Trigger, he may have been cornered, he may have lost most of his main army, but he crippled the economy, and on top of that, he was able to reinforce. He was able to reinforce, warp in more stalkers, had plenty of disruptors back at home as well. GG. GG, well played. Whew. Trigger will take a lead in the semis. But that was a very close game. That was very, I said it before, very uneasy. Like I felt uneasy watching it. Like it was just very scrappy, maybe a better way of putting it. Where initially, Nicoract, he was able to almost break the 3rd base of Trigger. If you remember, I thought he was going for a 2-base all-in, but he chose not to pull the boys. He threw down an eBay and a starport and worked towards a longer game state. Because of that, he barely didn't kill Trigger, and then Trigger counterattacked and lost a lot of units as well, and it was just very back and forth early on. Then the game stabilized, and we ended up in a pseudo base trade where both armies missed each other. Both players initially got their respective expansions. 5th bases went down, and then Nicoract made the choice to turn back, and Trigger did not. And here we go, we're getting into game number 2. Gonna be loading into post-youth. Here we go. Here we go. Getting into game 2 and spawning in the top right-hand corner of post-youth, we have our Canadian Protoss player, the Red Protoss, representing Basilisk. It is Trigger. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the blue Terran player, representing the Platinum Heroes. It is Nicoract. Let us go. Have our TVP, have our game 2. And even though Trigger did take the first game, that was still very close. And I do think there were moments where Nicoract was ahead, if not, I mean, Nicoract just having a straight up lead. So definitely a scrappy game between both Trigger and Nicoract, and based off of that last game, I would not be surprised if this goes to the ace match as well. We'll see as the pressure is on Nicoract. Pressure is on. Trigger dipping in. And again, Post-Youth is one of those maps that also is a little bit quirky as well. We do have our in-base expansion. Trigger being as annoying as possible. Oh, does attempt to delay. Oh, despite that, is going to get surrounded. Not bad. Nicoract does shut it down. Gets a kill on the probe. And we'll expand from here. We'll get his expansion again. Racks expand. Economic opener out of Nicoract. Across the map, Trigger also going for his own expansion. From here, we can calm things down. And settle in. Ooh, and now we have our build of choice here. Nicoract going for a third CC. Okay, going 3 CC, 3 ranks, I imagine. So a very greedy build here by Nicoract. And suddenly, oh, 3 briquettes into the main. Threading the mineral line. But suddenly the pressure is going to be on Trigger. And I do like this kind of change of pace. As a reminder, last game, Nicoract went for a borderline 2-base all-in and almost killed Trigger. This time, Nicoract going for a much greedier build, a much more macro game setup. As there's the second and the third rack, so 3 CC, 3 racks out of Nicoract. And if Nicoract isn't punished for this greed, then he can just snowball out of control in the mid game. Specifically when his third base gets fully saturated, when he will have a massive advantage over Trigger. Now Trigger does come in with hallucination, does scout, does confirm. Trigger is fully aware of the build. He's aware of the greed. How does Trigger respond? For now, getting ready for his own third. So it looks like Trigger just opening up 2 Gate Blink into a third Nexus. Economic opener out of Trigger. I would still favor Nicoract in this game state. Again, it's going to be on Trigger to either try and punish this or even just contain. Just delay the third for as long as possible. And be active with those Wing Stalkers. We'll see if he can. See if he can. River is placed. Trigger settling in. Nicoract is going to be building up a bio-based army. Again, delayed tank production or any kind of factory or starport kind of setup. Just mass marine marauder and stim. Trigger is going to poke in. Does force field the ramp, picking up some units. Not catching anything too major. Chipping away at the army. But again, he can't fully engage. There is a window here where stim isn't done. Trigger does catch a marine. Gets 2 marines so far. It's something. 2 marines. Borders on the way behind this. Safety immortal. And Nicoract, upon moving out like that, was able to establish his third. His third base is getting up. And right now, I mean, the worker count is in favor of Trigger, but that is soon about to change. As Nicoract is building up his SCV counts, muling as well. Nicoract is going to be threatening that third. And Trigger is still building up towards that splash damage. The bay is on the way. That's going to be for the Colossus. Nicoract, he stims in. Ooh, into an overcharge. Into force fields as well. He just stands and delivers. He doesn't care. He just focuses on every single Stalker. The Stalkers go down. There's one left. I feel like we could have maybe kept going there, but Nicoract does pull back. He does preserve his army. Did trade well. Again, he took down 6 Stalkers and 3 Sentries. Very nice value for Nicoract. He's going to be reinforcing. I mean, Nicoract, he still has a threatening army. 4th CC behind this. Is not even a 4th on the way for Trigger. Oh my god. Still no 4th on the way. Nicoract playing it out carefully. There's still not much to work with here for the Protoss either. First Colossus is on the way. And Nicoract backs up. I mean, I still do favor Nicoract's position here. I mean, he still has quite an army to work with. His fourth base on location is the gold as well. Trigger doesn't quite confirm. And it looks like Nicoract, he's waiting for his medevacs. He's waiting for a little bit more sustain with his army. Again, just playing it safe. Second starport's on the way. Nicoract, he catches the observer. Trigger just now taking the fourth. Now, what's terrifying about this is that typically in this kind of dynamic, in this matchup, the Protoss player wants to be up a base. Because of mules and because of the dynamic of mules as well, Protoss player ideally wants to be up an expansion. Instead, it's Nicoract that's up a base instead. And now you can see that reflected in supply. Like, there's a reason why Nicoract has a massive army supply right now. Because of the faster third, and now the faster fourth. So Nicoract's greater economy is now turning into a greater army. And, yeah, Nicoract, he's looking to overwhelm. Now, what Trigger is doing is risky, but I think it's necessary. Trigger, he's going into Disruptor. He's skipping out on the second Colossus and rushing into Disruptor. It's high risk, high reward. And I feel like in this kind of game state, we need to take a risk. If Trigger can land a juicy connection, then Trigger can survive. If not, well, so far, okay. But the Disruptor is going to go down. Not the best trade for Trigger. Disruptor does fall, and here comes the main army, pushing towards the left. Pylon goes down. Trigger being pinned back. Down goes the shield battery, cannon as well. And the Vikings are reigning supreme. There's only one Stalker. And Nicoract, he's going for the base, going for the Nexus. The fourth base goes down. Drop into the main is denied. But again, Nicoract, he's just securing himself. He's just perpetually up a base, up an expansion, up an economy. Nicoract building up more Vikings, making 4 Vikings at a time. No Ghost Academy yet. Oh, no, sorry, my apologies, I missed it. He's already got the Ghost. Oh, he's fine. I was gonna be like, my one caveat was like, oh, you know, he doesn't have EMPs. Now, he's got him, Pat. He's got the EMPs. Never goes up. Nicoract, he will shut it down. And Trigger, he's up against the wall. Can he establish a fourth base? He's got how many disruptors? 3. 3 disruptors. There is potential. There is potential with these disruptors. With this army. I want to believe. Nicoract getting a 5th expansion. On location. Waiting for his reinforcements. And Nicoract almost maxed. But pushing into disruptors is a difficult thing to do. It's not easy. Nicoract goes to the stem. Up! Nova zones away. There's still 2 more Novas left. Nicoract splitting off his army. Trigger does spot the rotation. And Trigger, he's buying time. So far, he's keeping up. Nicoract runs into a Colossus. Is going to be deflected. And Trigger, he's holding. He's holding back. He's surviving. And Nicoract, he can't quite break through. And despite the supply lead, will catch a stray Colossus. Some missed movement here by Trigger. Colossus goes down. Just some mispathing with the main army. This 5th base is ambitious by Trigger. Likewise going to be denied, but that is how many disruptors? 7! 2 Novas go up, 3 Novas go up. 4 Novas left. Trigger stimming on in, getting to the middle line, going for the base itself. Oh, won't quite get it. Trigger will defend. Gonna cost him some Stalkers. Main army coming in from behind. Nicoract once again trying to go for a split push. And behind this, 2 more starports. And a fusion core on the way for Nicoract. He has not quite been able to embrace Liberators. I mean, Libs would have been ideal. This is a bit of a later transition for Nicoract, but he's getting there. That is Liberator range. Till then, oh, big Novas! Oh my god! Massive connections! Oh, and Nicoract, the splits are not there! Yeah, they're not there, not in time. Trigger, he breaks out! And the Novas, the Disruptors are just a little bit too much. Trigger, he is breaking through and he can counterattack. The Mass Disruptor, he's doing it! Again, the Liberator transition was just a little bit too late for Nicoract. Novas going off once again, massive connections! The Vikings land, GG gets called, and Trigger, he bounces back, takes the series 2-0, advances on to the grand finals. GG. Trigger, calm down. GG, well played. Trigger getting up to, what was it, 8 or 9 disruptors at the end there, getting into Mass Disruptor, and in the end, he was contained. That is true. His 4th place was denied over and over again. He was contained. I do think that Nicoract was doing everything right for a long time there, but the big criticism and the next big power spike for Terran is Lib Ghost, right? Or Ghost Lib, maybe a better way of putting it. Liberators, they do add a very different dynamic here, and they do allow Terran players to actually have an anchor point for their main army, and to actually zone away the Protoss and have, again, the Protoss be forced back instead of the other way around. And it was on the way. We had a Fusion Core, we had 2 more Starports, we had Lib Range in production, but no Liberators. Again, that transition did feel a little bit late, especially considering that Nicoract had maxed out, and that Nicoract was on 5 bases. So it did feel like, you know, he was just a little bit too late to get there, and as a result, there was a window. There was a window of opportunity, and Trigger did break through. GG. Whew. GG, well played. Congratulations, Trigger will take the series 2-0, advancing on to those grand finals. Very impressive, very intense series, what I will say. GG, well played, and we are heading over to the Korean server because Trigger, of course, is in Korea at the moment. He's living in the land of South Korea, and we're heading over for that best of 5 grand finals. Let's go. And a big shout out to Nicoract, because what I will say, this was not an easy series for Trigger. On paper, it looks like, oh, you know, Trigger, he 2-0'd. You know, Trigger, he popped off. In a way, yes, but at the same time, if you watch the games themselves, Nicoract, he had a lead both in game 1 and in game 2 as well. Like, Nicoract, he was not outclassed by any means by Trigger. It was a very close best of 3, and I hope Nicoract is not discouraged after this series. He did play well. Did play well. GG, well played. Trigger does take it in the end, but a shout out to Nicoract. Big shout out. Again, he's a regular in a lot of these online events. We do hope to see more of Nicoract in the future. Until then, though, we have our 2 finalists. And before the grand finals, we have a raffle.